Alright gentlemen, in this video we're covering the causes of male infertility. The kind of stuff that quietly lowers sperm count, makes your swimmers go in circles, and warps their shape. And even though most guys think fertility is just a random roll of the dice, the truth is it all comes down to adaptation, because our bodies are always adapting to their environment, including the environment from within. So when we modify these environmental inputs, we can tip the scales towards vitality. So let's start with the most common anatomical causes of male infertility. Varicoceles. Varicoceles are enlarged veins in the scrotum, similar to varicose veins in the leg. And when they appear in the scrotum, they can cause infertility. In fact, around 40% of men with infertility have varicoceles. And the reason this causes infertility comes down to heat. The impaired blood flow traps heat in the testicles, which then shuts down sperm production. And it turns out there is a reason our testicles are placed outside of the body. They are very sensitive to heat. So when things heat up by just a few degrees, sperm production drops and DNA damage starts to occur. This is also the rationale for why tight-fitting underwear impairs fertility. Sadly though, most men have never even heard about varicoceles or have even been checked for that matter. But here's the good news. You can assess if you have them at home. Simply feel behind your testicles and perform the Valsalva maneuver. The Valsalva maneuver increases internal pressure, just like when you're blowing up a difficult balloon or when you drop a load off on the toilet. So just feel behind your testicles and bear down. If you feel something resembling a bag of worms, you need to get checked. Additionally, having low to borderline measurements on a semen analysis is also a good reason to get checked for varicoceles. Now, if you or your doctor find the dreaded bag of worms, it's not the end of the world, because they can be fixed. And when this happens, the testicles will begin to cool properly, which then increases sperm quality and quantity. Next up is hormones. There are three main hormones critical for male fertility: luteinizing hormone, LH, follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, and testosterone. LH tells Leydig cells in the testicles to make testosterone. FSH tells Sertoli cells in the testicles to mature sperm. And testosterone levels need to be optimal for sperm production. When this hormonal trifecta is running smoothly, our production line hums. But when any one of these hormones are off, output slows way down. So what causes our hormones to go sideways? Yeah, the list is long, but keep in mind most of these factors are well within our control. Before moving on, I want to talk about a hormone treatment you might not associate with infertility: testosterone replacement therapy, TRT. TRT has been surging in popularity, and for good reason. This masculine hormone increases energy, mood, strength, improves sleep, sheds fat, and just makes you feel better. But despite these benefits, there is a dark side to TRT. It shuts down LH and FSH via negative feedback. Here's what I mean. When the body detects high levels of testosterone, it shuts down internal production, resulting in minuscule levels of LH and FSH. This happens because the body is smart, and it's not going to waste energy creating hormones that are already available. So when LH and FSH stops being produced, so does sperm production. This effect of TRT is so well documented that it's been coined the male birth control. That is, unless countermeasures are taken. And even then, sperm production can still go way down. So, if you're on TRT or considering it, it's wise to add human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, or enclomiphene. HCG mimics LH and maintains production of testosterone inside the testes. A typical protocol is a 250 to 500 IU injection 2 to 3 times per week to preserve sperm production. That said, you need a prescription from your doctor to get HCG. The next TRT protective compound is enclomiphene. Enclomiphene blocks estrogen receptor feedback in the hypothalamus, thereby increasing GnRH, LH, and FSH. This not only increases natural testosterone production, but it also supports sperm production without shutting down the system like TRT. And just like HCG, a doctor's prescription is required for enclomiphene. A typical protocol for this compound is 12.5 mg to 25 mg daily. Now, it's worth mentioning that both are used independently to improve fertility in men who aren't taking TRT. Therefore, if you're okay taking the chemical route, talk to your doctor about these compounds. But remember, there is always a reason for hormone imbalances, and addressing the whole system is always the best approach. All right, I want to touch on one more hormone that impacts fertility: thyroid hormones. Think of your thyroid as the gas and brake pedal for energy production. When thyroid hormones increase, it causes more energy production, oxygen consumption, and heat, just like stepping on the gas. Conversely, when thyroid hormones decrease, our metabolism slows way down and energy production tanks. This is important for fertility because low and high thyroid hormones can disrupt hormone signaling, which then impairs sperm quality and decreases the odds of success. The key takeaway is this: test your thyroid hormones and adjust accordingly. Infections. Believe it or not, sexually transmitted infections like chlamydia and gonorrhea, along with other GI infections like prostatitis, account for roughly 10 to 15% of all male infertility. This is due to chronic inflammation, scar tissue, and sperm damage. But I gotta tell you fellas, this one is easily preventable and treatable. Just get checked and wear protection. Plus, more often than not, after the infection is gone, normal function will return. So if you fall into this category, fix the issue and retest after 90 days. Anatomy and obstructions. You can produce high levels of healthy sperm, but if the reproductive tract is blocked, infertility will follow. About 10% of men struggling with infertility have anatomical issues that prevent sperm from being ejaculated. Common examples include an absence of the vas deferens, scarring from infections, surgical injuries, or other physical trauma downstairs. So if your semen analysis shows very low or no sperm at all, but hormone levels are normal, an underlying obstruction may be the cause. Simple imaging and a urologist workup can help identify these blockages. Often these obstructions can be treated or bypassed to restore fertility. Genetics. Sometimes we can do everything right, but our blueprint simply won't allow fertility to happen. This is the case for roughly 10% of men with infertility. These genetic abnormalities include chromosomal abnormalities, such as Klinefelter syndrome or Y chromosomal microdeletions or single gene mutations. Most of these genetic causes create a condition called azoospermia, meaning an absence of sperm. The takeaway: if your counts are extremely low or absent altogether and everything else looks within normal range, think obstruction or genetics. Next up is industrialized chemicals and pharmaceutical treatments. Industrialized chemicals have caused many diseases since their creation, whether being poisons like herbicides, insecticides, or pesticides that get sprayed liberally in cities and on our foods, or cellular poisons like radiation and chemotherapy. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not demonizing industrialized chemicals across the board, but it's undeniable that they cause harm. For example, chemotherapy and radiation can suppress or wipe out sperm production. Sometimes it's permanent, and sometimes it's not. Other industrialized chemicals known to impair male fertility include pesticides like DDT, Roundup, and hormone disruptors from plastics like BPA and phthalates. Obviously, the best strategy is to limit or avoid these industrialized chemicals altogether. But life doesn't always happen that way, so having a rock-solid strategy to remove these chemicals is a smart move, which I will cover in another video. You can also find out how to do this in my book, Your Life, Your Choice: The Rise of Adaptive Medicine. Beyond these industrial poisons and hormone disruptors, an alarming amount of medications can lower sperm count, motility, and alter hormones. As you can probably imagine, the list is very long. So here's a cheat sheet for efficiency. Yeah, there are a ton of medications that harm male fertility. And believe it or not, this is the short list. So here's the takeaway. If you're on a medication, don't just wing it and hope for the best. Review your meds line by line to determine if these chemicals are contributing to your infertility. All right, next on the list is without a doubt the biggest lever we have, lifestyle. Lifestyle is the sum of an individual's behaviors and habits. What you eat, when you sleep, how much you exercise, and so on. Think of it this way. The way you live can either be poison or medicine. So the trick is designing a life that is living, breathing medicine. And this can be accomplished by temporarily challenging the body with habits that improve overall function, instead of consistently breaking them down. So let's dive into a few of the most common lifestyle factors causing or contributing to male infertility. Number 1, being obese or overweight. Excess body fat increases aromatization, which converts testosterone to estrogen. Plus, it radically increases inflammation, impairs sleep, and hinders sperm quality. In fact, evidence shows that carrying around excess fat will damage all the systems that we need to thrive. This is why it's strongly correlated to the leading causes of death, including heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, strokes, and cancer, to name a few. So with all this chaos happening in the body, it's no surprise that fertility takes a hit. There is simply too much damage for optimal sperm production. But if you're still on the fence, consider this. Studies show that being overweight or obese will reduce semen volume, concentration, motility, and increase oxidative stress and DNA fragmentation, leading to abnormal morphology. If that's not scary enough, evidence also shows that obese fathers have an increased risk of pregnancy and birth complications, in addition to having a higher incidence of children with chronic disease. So yeah, maintaining an optimal weight is crucial, not only for your health, but the health of your child. Number 2, smoking and alcohol. It's generally recognized that smoking and throwing them back are bad for one's health. Despite this, these substances have become enmeshed into social customs, thereby giving them a wide range of leniency. But don't be fooled. Smoking tobacco, or cannabis for that matter, will negatively impact your sperm, your hormones, and overall function. Now, an occasional smoke probably won't cause the needle to dip that much, so there is some wiggle room. That said, if smoking is a daily habit, you're not doing yourself any favors. Similarly, the beloved neurotoxin called alcohol will throw off hormones, spike inflammation, and destroy your sleep quality. Plus, it's well documented that chronic alcohol consumption causes low sperm counts, motility, morphology, and increases DNA damage in the sperm. And listen, I get that having a few beers is a good time and acts as a pressure relief valve. So just remember, everything in moderation. That said, if having a child is at the top of your list, it's best to eliminate booze altogether for 3 months before you start trying. And don't worry, you can always go back to that beloved booze after a successful pregnancy. Next on the list is diet and movement. We already discussed the wrath that unfolds from carrying around excess weight, and this goes hand in hand with diet and exercise. On the diet front, the evidence is undeniably clear. The best diet is whole foods and ideally organic, just like it has been since Earth was created. Just to be clear, whole foods are not processed, nor do they have laboratory chemicals. They are foundational nutrition found in every garden, meat, fruit, eggs, and so on. Yet in our society, convenience is king, and this value has given way to a diet mostly composed of ultra-processed foods. These laboratory concoctions are widely destructive to our health, to such a degree that multiple studies from around the world have discovered that for every 10% increase in ultra-processed food, there is a 12% increased risk for cancer. Now, if you're thinking, big deal, I don't eat that much. Well, consider this. The average American diet is roughly 56% ultra-processed food. So yeah, we definitely have a big problem on our hands. Not to mention that processed food is nutrition poor and incites inflammation across the entire body. Thankfully, though, the solution is simple. Good old-fashioned whole foods. We'll cover nutrition, supplements, probiotics, and more in another video. So for now, just remember our bodies are designed for whole foods, not breaking down laboratory experiments. That brings us to movement. Exercise is one of the best habits for overall health, and it accomplishes this feat by challenging the entire system, which then triggers adaptation throughout the body and improves function. Now, I want to burn this into your brains because we function as a system, just like a car. You could have the best engine in the world, but if your cooling system or filters are slacking, you're going nowhere. Now, an in-depth discussion on the benefits of exercise will be covered later. So for now, just know that the evidence consistently shows that any type of movement, whether it's cardio or resistance training, will improve all the markers of sperm health by roughly 20%. Here's the take-home message. A sedentary lifestyle is pathological and will lead to way more health issues than just infertility, whereas exercise is medicine. It has been consistently shown to prevent, treat, and reverse chronic disease, including male infertility. Number 4, heat stress. If you follow health circles, you're probably aware of the benefits of brief heat stress, like saunas, steam rooms, or hot tubs. But we want to be careful with these steamy treatments if we want to conceive. Here's why. The testes need to be about 2 to 4 degrees cooler than the body for optimal sperm production. This is why they are placed in a sac outside the body. This means when our body heats up, it will decrease overall sperm quality. Plus, you don't have to be sweating it out in a sauna. It could be as simple as keeping your boys close to your body with tight fitting underwear. Here's the good news. When we remove the heat stress, sperm production comes back online. Just remember, it takes about 3 months for sperm to mature. So take the appropriate steps if this is applicable to you. Number 5, hormone disruptors. This topic is consistently evolving due to the whack-a-mole-like relationship between industry and health, whereby one industrial chemical is utilized only to be discovered later that it causes harm. These chemicals are then restricted and replaced by another novel chemical, which continues the cycle. Due to this ever-evolving chemical game, exact percentages as it relates to male infertility is unknown. However, we do know that there are several chemicals that impair testosterone by acting as pseudoestrogens in the body. For example, phthalates are chemicals used to make plastics soft, and they're also found in cosmetics and personal care products due to their ability to extend scent. The problem is phthalates are everywhere. They are in our water, soil, food, you name it. The abundance is so large that studies have demonstrated that over 90% of the population have phthalates in their urine. Here's why that matters. Several studies have shown phthalates decrease sperm quality and testosterone. To drive the point home, consider this. Over the past 50 years, testosterone has decreased by about 40%, and overall sperm count has plummeted by 50% in the general population. Now here's the kicker. Numerous studies demonstrated that phthalates are one of the biggest contributors to this decline. Yet phthalates are just one compound in this chemically rich society we live in. Other compounds found in plastics known to impair sperm quality and testosterone include bisphenol A, BPA, polychlorinated bisphenols, PCBs, and parabens. Now, I know these names can quickly cause people to check out, so hang in there for just a bit longer. Other hormone disruptors that have been demonstrated to impair sperm function include herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, and heavy metals. All right, so what can we do about it? Swap plastics for glass or stainless steel, drink filtered water, and limit your exposure to plastics and chemical-rich cosmetics. Regarding the agricultural compounds and heavy metals, well, the best strategy is limiting your exposure to the best of your ability. We will take a deep dive into clearing out these compounds a little bit later. For now, just know that there are chemicals in our environment that are actively working against you, and it's smart to take countermeasures to ensure optimal health. Next on the list, dysfunctional circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is our body's internal clock. It tells the body when it's time to wake up and get after it, and when it's time to calm down and recover. Unsurprisingly, the timing is determined by environmental cues. The biggest cue is the sun. When the sun comes out, the light triggers a cascade of reactions that stimulate the body and mind. And when the sun dips below the horizon, darkness triggers the opposite, recovery. Yet light and darkness is only one of the ratios that determines our rhythm. So let's quickly break down the stimulatory factors and sedative factors. On the stimulatory side, we have light, eating, movement, and heat. The factors of sedation and recovery include darkness, fasting, sleep, and cold. The important part to remember is the ratio. A functional circadian rhythm has a balance of these elements, just like nature. However, when one or more of these elements are skewed, trouble will soon follow. Here's what I mean. Having a longer eating window relative to the fasting window has been strongly correlated to a long list of chronic diseases, including poor sperm measurements. Similarly, a prolonged wake window accompanied by inadequate sleep is also strongly associated to a long list of chronic diseases. So what can we do? Balance. Balance the stimulatory factors that generally break down the body and the sedative factors that help clear the metabolic byproducts accumulated throughout the day and helps the body repair. So when an individual pushes too hard on the gas pedal, they inadvertently tip the scales towards disease by limiting recovery. The important thing here to remember, besides an ideal ratio, is consistency. Just like nature, we need a consistent balance to make sure our bodies and minds are firing on all cylinders. Now, I want to be perfectly clear. Robust evidence shows that having a dysfunctional circadian rhythm will impair testosterone and all the measurements of sperm quality. So yeah, it's a big deal. The takeaway? When you align your behaviors to nature, you optimize your chances of conception. All right, the last common factor of male infertility is psychological stress. Here's the truth. Mental stress is just a part of life. Finances, career, family dynamics, unforeseen health issues, and more. They all contribute to psychological stress. And like most things in life, stress falls on a spectrum that is largely within our control. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but staying calm and reflecting on what you have control over is a daily practice. It's a skill that gets honed day in and day out. This stance can be summed up nicely by the legendary Stoic Epictetus when he said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Epictetus. Philosophy aside, we're having this conversation because mind equals body. Your thoughts and beliefs wield tremendous power. They help shape everything in your life, including how your body functions. This can be seen in countless studies on the placebo effect, whereby an individual believes something is beneficial and the outcomes reflect that positive belief. Alternatively, the nocebo effect has the opposite result. Think of it like the dark shadow of the mind that's responsible for self-doubts, fear, and anxiety. You know, all the what-if scenarios. What if we never get pregnant? What if it's my fault? How are we going to afford this? And on the cycle goes, revving up fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. So how does this clever rant relate to fertility? Studies show that roughly 20 to 35% of infertile men experience clinically significant psychological distress. When this happens, cortisol goes up and throws a wrench in the whole system, creating hormonal imbalances, poor sleep, anxiety, depression, inflammation, and yes, impaired sperm function. Here's the take-home message. You can't control outside events. You can only control how you respond to them. So take a minute and reflect on your stressors. Is your response a net positive or a net negative? Then schedule in stress-reducing tools like meditation, naps, prayer, yoga, walks, or whatever gets you to calm down and think clearly. Now, I understand this is overly simplified, but rest assured, we will cover mental stress and how to avoid these anxiety-filled tailspins in another video. Pulling it all together. Male fertility comes down to 5 basic questions. Is the factory cool and powered? Are the signals clear? Is the road open? Is the environment helping or harming? Is the body's rhythm aligned with nature? Here's the bottom line. Fertility comes down to function. Identify your bottleneck, change the inputs, and you will get a different result.